Hey everybody, welcome to Divine Thursday for January 21st, 2021. I'm your host, DM Gallibond. Now tonight we're going to be looking at a spell that goes all the way back to the earliest days of D&D, and we're also going to see how originally this was two spells in one, and how over the we're going to look at one of the descendant trees tonight, and later on we will be looking at another descendant tree. This is very appropriate for a late January edition of Divine Thursday because we are looking at Ice Storm. Nice wintertime thing. So get your hot cocoa and get ready, and let's go ahead and dive into looking at this spell together, shall we? Okay. The Ice Storm is a spell that comes to us all the way back from original D&D. Over in the Rules Cyclopedia, we can look at this. It started off as Ice Storm and Wall of Ice. It was a 4th level magic user spell with a range of 120 feet. The duration for the storm was 1 round. The duration of the wall is 12 turns, which is 120 minutes. So very, very different here. The storm is a 20 by 20 by 20 foot volume. The wall is 1,200 square feet. An icy blast is ice storm or wall of ice. Ice storm fills a 20 by 20 by 20 cube if cast in a small area or remain 20 feet long at most. It inflicts 1d6 points of damage per level of the caster to every creature in the area. And all victims make a saving throw versus spells and take half damage if they miss. And fire type creatures have a minus, including red dragons and flame salamanders, have a -4 penalty on their saving throws. And cold creatures are not affected by the spell, such as frost giants or frost salamanders. And the wall of ice is a thin vertical wall, any dimension and shape determined by the spellcaster, totaling 1,200 square feet or less. So it can be 10 feet high by 120 feet long and 1 foot thick, or it can be 30 feet long and 40 feet wide, whatever, or 40 feet high, 30 feet long, whatever. It's opaque and will block sight, must be cast to rest on the ground or similar support, cannot be cast in a space occupied by another object. So, creatures of less than 4 hit dice or levels cannot break through the wall, period. Creatures of 4 hit dice or more can break through but take 1d6 points of damage in the process. And fire creatures each take twice the amount of damage while breaking through. So that is how Ice Storm / Wall of Ice worked in the beginning. Now, when they got to AD&D, they said, "Oh, wait a second. Okay, we should really split these spells into two." And so we went down the Ice Storm path that we are going to be looking at for the rest of our time together today. So the Ice Storm is Evocation, level 4 spell, range 10 feet per level or 10 yards per level, duration 1 round, and creates great hailstones to pound down an area of 40 feet in diameter, and inflict from 3 to 30 or 3d10 hit points of damage on all creatures within the area. Or it can be made to cause driving sleet to fall in an area of 80 feet diameter that both blind creatures and for the duration of the spell, and cause the ground to be icy, slowing movement within by 50% and making it 50% probable that a moving creature will slip and fall when trying to move. And so the duration is 1 round. So that is again, very, very quick and doesn't last a lot, but it deals either will obscure vision and make it difficult terrain for people that are in the storm, or it will deal a great amount of damage to them. Okay, in second edition, 10 yards per level, area of effect 20 or 40-foot radius, and this is again exactly like in second edition is exactly like the AD&D version of the spell. Um, and it mentions that it extinguishes torches and small fires, and both of them mention that they will negate a heat metal spell. So now we go to third edition. And the Ice Storm, it's a 4th level spell for druids, wizards, sorcerers, and a 5th level spell for water domain clerics. It's a cylinder, 20-foot radius, 40 feet high, and lasts 1 round. Great magical hailstones pound down for 1 full round, dealing 3d6 points of bludgeoning and 2d6 points of cold damage to every creature in the area. Now, the reason that's important is because you might have creatures that are resistant to bludgeoning damage, or resistant to cold, or resistant to both. Or maybe they're resistant to one and vulnerable to another. So it's important to roll that damage separately. When you do that, to make sure that you properly apply the damage based on what the target is. At the end of the duration, the hail disappears, leaving no after effects other than the damage dealt. Now that's an uh, interesting little tidbit. A -4 penalty applies to each listen check made within the ice storm's effect, and all land movement is at half speed. But again, it only lasts 1 round. So, um, and it's curious that it just completely all disappears at the end of that spell. Now, we're going to take a look at 4th edition, and there's actually 2 different versions of this in 4th edition. So, for wizards, they get a level 9 daily ice storm. Wizard attack 9. Shower bitterly cold hailstones, pummels a wide swath of ground, and covers the area in ice. Area burst 3 within 20 squares. Each target 2d8 plus intelligence modifier cold damage, and the target is immobilized. Save ends. And half damage, and a target is slowed. Save ends. The burst creates a zone of ice. The zone is difficult terrain until the end of the encounter, or for 5 minutes, whichever comes first. So in 4th edition, the daily thing always has something that, or almost always has something that has some effect, even if there's a save against the attack. Now, that's a level 9 daily spell, but there's also a level 29 daily spell for wizards called Greater Ice Storm. Storm of bitterly cold hailstones pummels a wide swath of ground and covers an area in ice. This one is a little bit larger, burst 5 within 20 squares instead of burst 3. And the attack is intelligence versus fortitude, 4d8 plus intelligence modifier cold damage, and the target is immobilized, half damage, and a target is slowed, and the burst creates a zone of ice. The zone is difficult terrain. So more damage and a larger area, and that's basically the difference between the Ice Storm at level 9 and the Greater Ice Storm at level 29. Now, in 5th edition, Ice Storm is a 4th level spell, 1 action, range is 300 feet with a cylinder of 20-foot radius. Instantaneous effect, evocation. Targets are entitled to a dex save. Hail of rock-hard ice pounds the ground in a 20-foot radius, 40-foot high cylinder centered on a point within range. Each creature must make a dex save or a creature takes 2d8 bludgeoning and 4d6 cold damage on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. Hailstones turn the storm's area of effect into difficult terrain until the end of your next turn. When you cast a spell using a slot of 5th or higher, bludgeoning increases by 1d8 for each slot above 4th level. Now, notice that upcasting it in 5th edition only increases the bludgeoning damage, does not increase the cold damage. And in all of these that require material components, and if you've been watching these for a while, you'll notice that oftentimes in first or original D&D, they're mum on whether or not any material components are required. It wasn't until AD&D that they started to uh, say it was verbal, somatic, material, and then material components are a pinch of dust and a few drops of water. And that pretty much is been consistent. A pinch of dust and a few drops of water. Let's see, and of course it doesn't. I guess in 4th edition they just said that you almost always have a focus, and so it doesn't usually a spellcasting focus. It usually doesn't tell you that you need material components. And in 5th edition, a pinch of dust and a few drops of water. So that has been very consistent as well. Now, in a few months, when we get to the W's, we're going to be looking at the Wall of Ice, and so we will come back to this spell once again at Rule Cyclopedia, and we will take a look at the other side or the other branch of that spell as it diverged and see how that has changed over the different editions. All right, well, thank you so much for hanging out today and dropping by and watching this. Please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video, click the post notification bell, and in the description you'll find all the ways that you can follow me on social media, as well as find out how you can follow the live streams that I do over on my Twitch channel. Thank you so much for being here, and I wish you a very pleasant good night. Take care, everybody.